The karts are ready, the drivers are just about set. Are you ready for a busy day of action? We welcome you to coverage of Kart Stars Canada here on Kart Chaser. As today, we have our coverage of the Uxbridge Hospital Charity Race presented by Green Infrastructure Partners. Today, we see how drivers fare out for the championships while also racing for a good cause into the nighttime. I'm Justin Prince, alongside me is Sheldon Atkins, as we get set for what's going to be a busy day of karting. Sheldon, it's going to be an interesting time for drivers as they work their way around Goodwood Kartways, one of the premier tracks in the GTA, and as well one of Canada's oldest kart tracks. Today should be fun as we race into the darkness.
Absolutely. Got the opportunity to cover here last year, and this track always puts on some really good racing with a lot of talented young stars here. And it's going to be exciting to see how these guys adapt to the ever-changing track conditions from pretty much sun up to sundown this afternoon.
Absolutely. Right now, the Briggs Masters are on the racetrack in the midst of their session as they get all sorted out and ready to go. You see the drivers popping to the left side of your screens here on Kart Chaser for those watching along. And we'll have coverage of the practice qualifying on the free side before we go behind the paywall where it's $9.99 a month US to be able to subscribe when it comes to the heats, the pre-finals, and the finals. Racing expected to go all the way till 9:10 p.m. Eastern Time here from the facility today. As we get sorted out and ready to go, let's talk about first things first, how things look for the points coming into today. Well, when it comes to the Masters so far, well, there's been a ton of drivers who have entered. Some of the classes as many as 87 entries, first things first. But second things second, Eli Yanko has led the way into a 10-point lead over Kevin May coming into the point standings for the Briggs Masters. It's been razor-thin margins in the standings up at the top. It can go either direction for the championship here with the night race.
So take a look right now at the times. Fastest lap on the board right now is the 4:55 machine of Sal Ditta. Runs a 47.821 to second place David Anderson's 47.994.
Yeah, these drivers currently just pacing themselves, right? It's important to be able to get the seat time to make sure you're ready to go. It is a very tight racetrack in terms of how much width you have, though, Sheldon. Not a lot of space to make passes. You can't just force it 2-3 wide everywhere here. For the most part, it's going to be important to time up your run so efficiently when it comes to how tight this surface is in general, you'd have to think.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of micro elevation changes here combined with the fact that it's just a very technical layout. There's not really much time that you're spending on a straightaway here. You're absolutely hammering it through the corners, trying to figure out how to get the best apex and run off. And it does not allow for a lot of opportunities, a lot of passing zones, but you're not going to have a whole lot of side-by-side for too long here, because if you do, somebody's going to end up not too happy with the outcome.
Absolutely here. Sal Ditta now amongst those at the top of the board. See the time circulating as we go on. Still, you have Alex Leo up the top of the board right now, the 471. Leo currently amongst one of the fastest drivers. In fact, is your fastest with a 48.658 as they go around the racetrack. So far, it's been the matter of the difference of who's going to be able to get themselves in the right position, right, in terms of later on today. And this is the major thing with these drivers is with these battles, we'll have to see how things play out in general for some of this. Based on what you've seen with the track maps and where we've seen some of the racing, where do you think we might see some of the action of the weekend? Where would you try instead of a move, if you don't let me ask him here, Sheldon?
The first turn looks pretty enticing. Once you get to the mix of the track, it's pretty much a left-right crawl, so not as much opportunity, but you have a lot of great positions where you could set up, you know, a last-second dive bomb into a corner, really catch somebody off guard. Might be the best bet if you're trying to avoid racing for too long. Also, Sabaglio jumping up the board now with a 46.236, taking the top over Dita, May, and Yanko.
Yeah, it's just plenty at the top of this board right now. Each of these about per each of the practice rotations before we then move on to the next class. There aren't too many breaks baked into the schedule until a sunset break, when there will be the Kid Kart podium later on tonight. It's basically straight racing all the way through this entire day. For those wanting to keep track of the layout, we are on the long track reverse with the chicane per the track map details here today. So you see the chicane, it's right near that front straightaway where we get to the tram lines around this facility. Rothman jumping up to second spot on the board as Spaglio stays up at the top of the board. A lot of these drivers have plenty of experience here. It is a big karting community in this region with all the tracks in the area. You're talking about drivers that have experience at the national level in all sorts of styles of racing here. Sheldon going to be racing this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And this track can also throw a little bit of curveballs. I mean, weather looking pretty good today. Last time I got the opportunity to call here, though, we had a near monsoon last season, which really made things interesting. If I remember correctly, too, last time I called here, I believe the Pegrams were running. Which you want to talk about diversity when it comes to talent in motorsports. I think they've got circuit between motorcycles and GT3 racing or sports car racing.
Cycle experience there. Jason Rothman now top of the board towards the end of this session. One of the drivers that finished things out on a very high note when it came to Cup Karts Canada competition actually recently. Before going to the Grands, that'll happen next week. A two-time senior heavy champion, Jason Rothman is, as well as a couple-time Kartstars Masters champion. These drivers now moving their way off the track. Some drivers stopping on the track.
This is a 129.
Yeah, some issues there for them as they try and get themselves refired up here. They'll try and get back going as they get the kart off the circuit.
We got one kart
Moors
off
are
track
off the
too.
grass. Yeah, a lot of chaos all of a sudden breaking out right towards the end of the session for some of these drivers. This is right, I should say, as things transition to the next grouping of drivers here too, Sheldon. That's how quickly things seem to be shuffling all of a sudden as these drivers have some chaos. Again, our next rotation just getting underway. The Mini Roks getting themselves on the racetrack, off to a busy start here.
Some pretty big names here, too, in the Mini Roks as well. Great upcoming talents. Ones that stand out for me, really, that I've had the opportunity to cover so far. Aiden Kishin, really good. George Ho, recognize that name. Thomas Dew, all very talented. But the one right at the top of the board that I've seen just on a tear all season is that 154 machine of Asher Pavon. Really excited to see what he's able to accomplish here this week from Goodwood.
Yes, right now, Aiden Kishon leading the way in the early going for this session. They get themselves in a rhythm so far when it comes to this respective class on the racetrack. How have things gone to the point standings, you may ask? Well, get that answer to you right now. So far, it has actually been Christian Demian Diaz who has led the way in the point standings with 1,126 points. Asher Pavon second with Kishon Ronnie up the top three with 955 points. 2045 for Pavon. And I know you were impressed with Pavon and his speed, what he showcased in his multiple classes coming into today.
The other two names, too, that you can't count out either, both Liam and Jaden Francisco. I've seen them do some crazy stuff this year as well. So this is definitely a star-studded field here for the Mini Roks. Should be very interesting to keep our eyes on throughout the day.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of speed from the Franciscos in down stateside, especially with their contention for multiple national championships in the U.S. side at least. These Mini Roks putting together lap times about 3 seconds quicker than our previous class, by the way, on the racetrack in terms of the practice session. Again, a reminder, today's action brought to you by Green Infrastructure Partners. Happy to have them with us as a part of the sponsorship for this event. They also supercharged the event you see in the backdrop. And for those on property, see the opportunity to be in part of some of the attractions, such as bouncy castles, dunk tanks, all sorts of various things have been brought on. There's also thousands in cash prizes and giveaways, a part of the races, but also a part of this weekend in general here, Sheldon. So a lot of support has been brought up on for this race in this season ender, all while also trying to raise money for the Uxbridge Hospital.
Definitely a great event that they put together. But they always put together something pretty special for this facility. Every time I've had the opportunity to call here, it's been pretty great. Right now, up at the top of the board, looks like Jaden Francesco is going to sneak it away with a 43.5. And these guys have just been all swapping lap times around. Just about everybody getting a chance up at the top of the board here for the Mini Roks.
Yes, indeed. We'll say Liam Francisco stuck down in fourth. A couple caution flags waving in the middle sectors. That's because of a spin.
That's Pavon.
That is Asher Pavon having some issues there. And getting himself back going as a result of that spin there. Again, these drivers will have a lot to navigate around when it comes to the corners. A lot of rubber buildup. You can see some of the lines popping up around here. This isn't necessarily a track you can argue has a lot of the Rhino liner per se. There's a lot of tire rubber buildup in some of the corners, yes, where you might see that appearance of the Rhino liner that pops up here. Just a little bit of it, I should rather say. But for these drivers, it's going to be about trying to maximize the grip levels. You would have to think once we go racing here.
No, absolutely. That's one thing about a track like this. You see that rubber buildup. That means that track surface a little abrasive. It means you can really maybe potentially charge a little too hard early in these races and then have it just all come back to you at the end.
Yeah, checker flag coming on the session this time through. Christian, Damian, Adidas coming out the top of the board. Jaden Francisco, Liam Francisco, along with Thomas Dew and Asher Pavon are your top 5 in session. Aiden Kitchen rounding out the top 6 in this respective group for the Mini Roks. 2 practice rotations now closing on up in total here this morning. Going to be having 10 different rotations of 7 minutes. These drivers, you can already see to the right side, there's a lot of scrambling. These drivers bring their carts into position to fire up our next group. Our next group of drivers are the VLR Juniors. Juniors now hit the racetrack this time through. VLR Juniors so far this season. Cole Madero is a very familiar name for those who watch on a Kart Chaser. Has been leading the point standings coming in. Lead is already almost, in fact, is just about 200 points over Ahmad Mustafa. That's after a 300-point last round in Shentonville. with the performance there. Colmadero is a very quick competitor when it comes to his blue and pink kart here, Sheldon. Should be very fast as these drivers work their way around the racetrack and get into a rhythm.
Yeah, Madero's, it's another name that I'm pretty familiar with here on Kart Chaser.
Yeah, it's been a competitive time for them this season as we see these drivers continue, get scored on the racetrack, and get themselves logged to the timing pylon. Right now, Roy Chain, Noiville Dos Santos, Ethan Tyers, along with Kara Dudgeon, along with Cole Campen, Robert Tronchi, along with Stefano Paglioli on the racetrack amongst the competitors that are on circuit getting their times now recorded here. Obviously, a little bit more than those 8 per some of the numbers on the track via the camera views. Some of those competitors just still ready to populate part of the VLR Jr scoring beacon. But a lot of these competitors trying to make sure they practice how this kart's going to feel in a bit in traffic, Sheldon. These drivers will have a bit of challenge when they're in some of the traffic, just trying to follow line to line in their respective karts, where things can get checked up.
Yeah, it's so difficult, especially on anywhere where you're turning left and right and really having to stab at the brakes, stab at the throttle. It's difficult when you're stuck behind somebody because it's very easy to throw yourself offline or throw yourself out of sequence just trying to react to what's going on with the kart in front of you. I've always struggled on road courses, at least on iRacing. Anytime I get behind somebody, I completely forget where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it's so easy to make mistakes, obviously, here with all these chicanes around this facility, especially when it comes to a lot of areas for overlap. In particular, that middle sector has those chances to get side by side here. So as they work their way through the chicane before the start and finish line pylon, first time start to come on in, Roy Chain is top of the board with a 41-1 so far in this session. All the numbers for those wanting to keep track on the scoring books are in the 200s here. Again, with how things are scored here with the injury list, no Maderos here this weekend. So it is wide open for who can get the chance to get the victory, per se, in VLR Jr here. And based on some of the drivers, this is a very populous field of near 20 drivers, Sheldon.
It's definitely going to be a packed house here this afternoon. Rok Chain absolutely setting down here, so 0.3 of a second separating him from second place on the board at the moment. So definitely a little something up the sleeve of the 263 machine here this morning.
Yep, right now, just continue to peel on the lap times and put them on down here. Roy Chain, Ethan Tyers, Robert Tronchi amongst the top 3. They're separated by just 2/3 of a second. Right now, it's going to be the question where things really shape up for some of those drivers again. Roy Chain is a part of the Elite Karting Academy. This is a home race for them as well when it comes to some of the karting experience. Had actually just picked up win at the last Kart Stars event, picking up the bear, so to speak, the national championship they call it over in Shannonville, to be able to get the wins. The trophy is basically looks like a bear, so to speak, for those who are a little bit not in the know. And Roy Chain looking to keep that speed going from last time out in this class. Right now, that advantage just about 0.5 of a second for the 263 car. See some of the team members in the 217, 215. Right there, James Dufford amongst those in this pack, who's right now third in the line.
Pretty close up here. Maybe a little bit of passing happening on the track here too.
James, mind you, is a driver that's been a vice champion a couple of times. Also, at one time, third place in the Canadian Nationals. He's done well when it comes to Rok Cup competition, where he was the vice champion on some of the battling for Super Final. Actually, at Rockfest Round 2, done very well there. Was amongst the drivers who got the chance to pose for the podium positions once things all shook out for them. Ethan Tyres now jumping to the top of the board, putting up the first time in the 42nd bracket.
That's an impressive lap time for the 222 machine of Ethan Tyres. Looks like him well above the rest of the competition here.
Ethan Tyres, part of a brother tandem that races Quinn and Ethan. Once the drivers that have had experience as a family, 2023 and 24 Kart Stars National Championships. Some yellow flags waving now around the racetrack, all over the circuit, in fact. That's because we're just about at the very tail end of the session here, it looks like. And that's with the checker flag now officially waving up at the flag stand. So it's going to be Ethan Tyres who sets the fastest lap time. 40.854 is the time. James Tupford, Roy Shane, Robert Tronchi, along with Melville Dos Santos up top. Our next class already getting waved onto the racetrack near immediately. VLR Masters is now on the racetrack. Andrew Valzano has led the way in those point standings with 1,203 points. Mark Pavon comes in second. Looking to try and figure out a way to get a max points day in the class. I've seen some 200-point days early on in the season here at Goodwood. Also in the conversation is Paul Rhodes with 986, trying to keep the advantage over Stephen Hanna for the top four. So these drivers now work their way on the circuit and get themselves worked into place here. So this class for VLR Masters this weekend, 10 drivers deep.
I'm amazed right now at the level of competition here throughout the fields. Really solid car counts too in pretty much every division that we're going to see this afternoon and this evening. There's going to be a lot of good racing here from the Goodwood Kartways.
Keep in mind, Valzano amongst those that also races regularly at Mosport. Some people can't pronounce it Mosport. It depends on the person you speak with. Have spoken in the past to some members of the Fellows family for reference who have said Mosport for those curious in terms of pronunciation. But it's one of the drivers that is a regular when it comes to racing general across the region. Some drivers have already talked about the improvement in racecraft needed to be able to contend for some of the championships in general. We'll have to see how the racecraft lies as these drivers set some of the first times. 42 ones for Mark Pavon to begin up at the top of the board. Valzano, Stephen Hanna, then John Cariotti, then Jesse Durant amongst the top five.
We're talking about racecraft, and racecraft is mostly everything. Doesn't matter what division motorsport you're running. If you're able to get around the track without making too many people discouraged that they had to race you, odds are they might cut you a break later on the season, or they, won't just run over you. But once you kind of get the, once you kind of bill yourself as an over-aggressive driver, nobody's going to cut you any breaks. It's a fine line. You don't want to be too under it, but you don't want to be too over it either, because both sides of the extreme pretty much will guarantee you a losing battle anytime you end up racing somebody.
And right now we're seeing a lot of these drivers just making sure all those checks are into play to make sure they're ready to go for a lot of those battles you're referring to. The major thing too is trying to make sure you have the gearing in particular set up to be able to capitalize. With this track, it's not a lot of, in fact, I wouldn't even say there are really drafting opportunities per se, outside of maybe that first run from the front straightaway up into what would be around 2 to 3, turns 2 to 3 or 4, give or take in that respective area. It's a lot about the technical side, so the tooth for the gearing might be for a lot of these drivers trying to make sure they have it optimized for the corners you have to think, Sheldon.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'd want to have, with as much time as we are in corner here, you want a pretty quick gear ratio. I mean, that straightaway, you know, you make a little bit of time there, but all your time here is basically going to be in the corner, on the corner exit. You just want to be able to quick launch down these short straightaways and have as much momentum built up into the next corner as you can possibly get. You know, it's quite a different side of things compared to, you know, what I've had the opportunity to cover with Whiteland Park, where, you know, you have very long straightaways and it's all about draft coming in the first corner. Here, it's just all about how well you can survive managing your way through the corner. So we got one cart around, great save.
Oh, it's stuck in the grass.
A stall in the grass, so that's going to make this practice session a little bit of a dud here. You able to refire, though?
Yeah, able to get it rolling out of the grass. Not going to stop the session here as we keep going on. As a result, Pavon continues to log laps. 4:54. Followed along with 4:12. Jesse Garant right now running 43.6s. Right now you see 4:19 just trying to figure out line after line. That is Marco Valenzuano, not Andrew specifically. The 4:19 in the red and yellow cart just pacing behind. Not the way they want the session to play out per se, but we'll see how things go once we get to qualifying of the race itself, if the speed comes down there for Marco amongst the Valenzanos.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely not where you want to be right now in practice, but that's good news too at the same time. This is really just a warm-up. Time to get out here, figure out what the track's going to feel like, figure out what you need with the cart. You know, plenty of time between now and qualifying to maybe make a quick change or two, and to figure out how you're going to reapproach it and reattack it.
Exactly. Here is yellow flags now waved. That's because we're coming up towards the end of the session here already. Checker flag waves on the racetrack. So a 42 flat is the top time from Andrew Valenzuano. You have Ivan Yinju in second, Hannah. Then it's Valenko in the top 5 so far amongst the drivers on the board. So have Andrew Valenzuano, I should say, up in second. Next up in the rotation, ready to come on the racetrack, VLR Sr for 7 minutes. So the seniors now work their way onto the circuit.
One cart off already.
Not the start for many of these drivers. 2 different competitors as well go in the grass with a third spin. Some of the drivers still not able to fire up quite yet. Now we'll get resorted here. Everyone else able to get rolling at least. So some of the dirt going to have to get that off the tires pretty quickly here if you want to be able to actually get some data from this session.
That's the most aggressive I think I've seen anybody with that runoff there. I don't know if you caught a glimpse of that.
Yeah, some of these drivers really having to get brave here in terms of getting around the chaos as we work our way through. Take a look right now on screen. 384. Most drivers should say on the racetrack. Still, it's important to mention when it comes to the seniors how things look for the point standings coming in for their battles into today. Jordan DeLeo has led the way in the standings in what's been a tight fight with Ethan Pollock. Those drivers relatively close, within about 23 points is the distance after Pollock set a max points day, 300 points. Able to close up the distance in Shannonville last time out.
Yeah, those are two names that I recognize pretty well from last season. Jordan, always fast. Same thing, though, for Ethan Pollock. It'll be interesting to see how these two battle this afternoon, as they both have the top spots locked currently in practice, but still plenty of time for anybody else to figure out how to get around this facility quick. Currently, Brenner Lilleberg going to take over third place, though. But not for long, as Shimbashi is going to take over third in the 372 cart.
And Shimbashi fifth in the point standings coming into this weekend. Showed speed all throughout the campaign. Now Jordan DeLeo is someone to keep in mind as well. He's raced at several different racetracks 7 times in his career. Karting champion in 319. It's going to be absolutely somebody to watch this entire weekend when we see that 319 number plate. A lot of these drivers testing out the battling opportunities, though. Once the final sector, some of the drivers seeing if they can make some moves in the final chicane, the 344 in particular. That is Bagley Maier-Oli, who is trying to make some moves and trying to test things out as some caution flags pop up. One driver is stopping on the racetrack.
And I always felt that that's what practice is best used for, as we see that looks like, is that the 390 cart?
Looks like 300, that will be Lilleberg.
Lilleberg.
Brenner. So, our driver having some problems here. A lot of competitors trying to get the kinks out.
I've always felt like that's what practice is best reserved for, you know, because qualifying, you don't want to end up in battles trying to figure out how to make it work, because if you do that, you end up losing time, losing opportunities at, you know, good laps. And practice, I just feel like, you know, send the card out there, see what you can do, see what works, what doesn't. You know, you're not really losing anything. It's like the practice is cool.
Last season's VLR champion for the juniors having problems. Looking around still, we have less than 2.5 minutes to work with in session. Roman Doria up to second. Fastest time is a 40.515 around the facility at the moment. Right behind the 40.7s. Then you have to go to the 41-second bracket in this session. And that's the interesting thing. A lot of the time, the speed you see in practice might not carry over to qualifying. For many of these drivers, it's making sure your setup is where you want it to be and finding what you need to adjust for later on. Oh, a little bit of RG barginess for some of the drivers, though, up in the final sector. 334. Durrani getting a little bit of the elbows out. Some of these drivers getting uber aggressive, causing some spins. The 334 goes off the racetrack. A lot of these drivers having some problems as they try and test out how well they can make a pass here, Sheldon.
Yeah, we're seeing the one-on-one in all the ways that you probably shouldn't do it. Because everybody, you know, over the ledge just a little bit here. So we see a little bit side-by-side action here. Good clean pass. You know, when it comes down to technical tracks like this, you know, it is really difficult to find your way past your competition and not set yourself up for failure at the same time. Because when you end up in a circuit where it's more often S's than anything else, you can put yourself at a disadvantage trying to make the pass.
That I agree with absolutely here, and there's so many opportunities potentially for if drivers make passes here, they can lose a ton of ground, but checker flag waves. These drivers have seen these sessions close up pretty quickly. The turnaround time, I will say, for race officials here today has been lightning fast. They have been trying to work these drivers on the racetrack like clockwork. It's still, by the way, to be determined based on the schedules coming into today, by the way, on when the qualifying will start, but you would have to think very quick turnaround is going to be the main thing about today with how fast we've gone into 7 minutes down and then getting a command for the drivers to go.
You know, they waste absolutely no time here at Goodwood. Track workers, teams, drivers, everybody doing a great job putting together some quick fire action for us here this afternoon.
So our next group of drivers now getting a chance to take a bit of a read. The reason we haven't fired off the next group is, well, it's about trying to get the 300 card off the racetrack. Trying to get Loberg off the facility property, at least on the surface of the racetrack with the grass, so we can get our next group fired up. Speaking of which, we are firing up engines, so that's about 1 minute out from our next pack. That's going to be the Briggs Cadet carts. Some of our younger drivers when it comes to our racing fields here. Briggs Cadet so far going to be one of the driver classes to watch for, because some of these drivers for Briggs have gone 53 drivers deep. There have been Adik drivers who have raced Briggs. Yusuf Adi will lead the way in the point stand. He's coming in, has essentially got a championship lock per se. If you look at the points down totals, Thomas Dew right behind. Tristan Francisco is still within range, along with Lucas Fuel Pit should say, to be able to maybe take away a top 2 in the point standings. Our next group now on the racetrack and ready to rumble.
It's a lot of heavy hitters you just mentioned too, and what a stacked field we have here for the Briggs Cadets. I don't think I've honestly had the luxury to call a field this deep in numbers. Currently what we're looking at, 28 on the board in our live timing at the moment.
Yeah, this track has seen plenty of racing over the years, we'll have to say, in terms of history, 50, 60 plus years at least. My math might be a bit off in terms of years, but I can say this is a racetrack where a lot of young competitors over the years have competed. The names that the facility shouts out: Ron Fellows, Paul Tracy, Scott Goodyear, all amongst the competitors that have gotten starts here at this facility over the decades.
Tell you what, those are some absolute legends you just mentioned there too. Just more inspiration for these young drivers to really get the reins on it and figure it out. Because there's no telling, some of these guys, we may see them, we may hear their names 10 years from now. And just remember that this is where they got their start.
One driver looking to get a start from the grass, and it's going to be a little bit tricky coming out of the dry stuff. That part of the grass gets very brittle feeling here in Canada. 47 still trying to get themselves re-fired up, ready to get back on the racetrack amongst the cadets. That would be Josie Sue. Followed along with the 17 car as they work away around the track, by the way.
There's Tristan Francisco there.
Yes,
Currently
indeed.
Third on the board, as Ramden in the 78 cart takes over the top spot with a 47.494.
Of course, we talked about Liam and Tristan with their experience, Canadian superstars when it comes to their family, when it comes to the racing. Tristan, of course, picking up a National Canadian Championship last time we went racing recently for the karting back in August. course, able to come away with that title run at Shannonville and get himself a trophy as well. So it's been a really good time, of course. First, when it comes to some of the racing, too, we'll say the Canadian Karting Championships actually got an opportunity to be on national television here in Canada. Was watching along with some of the tapings of some of those races when they took place for a Canadian National Karting Championship competition for the racing. So there's been a lot of momentum when it comes to Tristan on the Canadian side recently.
And one thing that momentum means is that momentum means forward opportunities potentially.
Absolutely here. Should correct myself, talking about the one at Uxbridge, once Canadian Championships. They're a part of that. So, that's seen lots of drivers take part in the karting, a part of that event at the track operated by Ron Fellows Karting for that event.
Ricky Raymond going to take over the top here. 4/10 up on Tristan Francesco in second place. 46.736. It's an absolute heater of a lap. But here comes Yusuf Adi.
Going back and forth here. Ricky Ramden in the 78 car. We see him pop up around the racetrack today. Amongst the drivers that actually picked up a Team Spirit Award during that Canadian National Karting Championship last month. So it's amongst the drivers that have picked up some hardware and some checks. So as of late, to be able to help with the racing career. Still following with Tristan Francisco on the racetrack of the cameras, by the way. He's right now working with Jacob Rulins. It's kind of helping showcase things. Some of the other drivers getting a little bit brave on some of the sends. And right now, Francisco showing you can set up stuff into that final chicane if you get brave and make it stick to the right side of the racetrack before you overlay for the corner. Still about a minute or so before these drivers close on up here. What would your notebook be like based on what you've seen so far in these practice sessions on what the expectations are here today?
Well, for the cadets, with the field count at least, the one thing that I do know is a big field means big moments and big chaos, as well as small mistakes become big mistakes quicker than you can bat an eye. So these guys, if they want to get it done for the Briggs cadets, you start up at the front, you're going to want to be perfect. You don't want to end up in this pack, because as soon as you end up back there, you put yourself in a worse situation than you could even imagine. It's all going to be about track position here for the cadets. That means putting the whole package together, get a great qualifying session in, do exceptional in your heats, and then just no mistakes when it comes race time later on this afternoon. It's also going to be pretty competitive too, because we've seen a lot of swapping here for the top of the board. Right now, though, Ramden the top of the chart over Romeo in second place. Now Yusuf Adi going to take over second place and move that 93 Kart back to third.
See if checker flag's this point. Yes, it is. Checker flag is out. And this session gets ready to close on up, with drivers turning 45.9s at the top of the board, 0.3 the difference for Ramden over Adi. Then it's Mateo Romeo. Full pit in the fourth spot. Luca Rodriguez gets fifth.
We got a change. Romeo's going to take the top of the 93 Kart. Last second punches across the line with a 45.083. Or sorry, 863. Been a different class if you ran an 083. But still a 45-second lap time. That is way above what I was expecting to see there.
So one of the youngsters in their first season of karting able to jump to the top as our next group is on track. This is the Briggs Jr Lights. And the Junior Lights, ready to see where things play out. The Junior Lights, amongst those that run with all of them run with the LO206, mind you. when it comes to the engine package, that it's with the blue slide specifically. These are basically your 11 to 15-year-olds. In terms of our grouping, it's 12 to 15 for the drivers that are the juniors themselves. This class is very deep when it comes to the amount of entries as well. You can tell already more than 20 drivers are on circuit. It's been Asher Vaughn that's led the way in the point standings there, as we were talking about Roy Chang, Cody Shaw amongst the top three in the standings. Right now, Pavon looking to clinch the championship. Last time out, scored 263 points. Roy Chang closed it up a little bit in the standings. And we know your like of Pavon's speed. Chang, though, looking to respond here today in his respective car.
Chang always looks pretty stout wherever he ends up. A couple other names I recognize in here. I recognize Casper Kitchell. I've had the luxury to cover them before in the past, as well as I'm sure I've covered Milan Hazardi before. It's definitely a really stacked field here. 23 carts deep. It's another, talking about that notebook, it's going to be the same thing that I said last class. You just don't want to make any mistakes. You have to be perfect with a field this deep, because if you start this race off, you have an issue in qualifying or in your heat, you're going to start this race off and you're going to be so far behind the 8-ball that I don't think you're going to be able to cut through the traffic in time to get to the front to finish the thing off and actually have a chance for the win.
Yeah, absolutely here. This is a hornet's nest of traffic right now. These drivers try and sort, well, where these times are going to fall. Asher Ravon starting off with the first lap at 9th, but remember, these tires have to get up to the temperature once again, be able to build up. We see pace pickup, and usually in 206 racing in general,
got to execute. You've got to attack the corners. You got to get as much speed out of it as you possibly can. You don't have the horsepower to rely on to pull you out of any mistakes either. So if you make one small misstep coming into a corner and bottle it up a little bit, it's going to be about 2 or 3 corners where you can finally actually be competitive again with the rest of the field. Grass is green, the sky is blue, and Roy Chang's fast. I'm pretty impressed with as many carts as we have in the field. We haven't really seen any, and I'm going to knock on wood here, but any big headache moments from anybody. Everybody giving each other plenty of room here in this warm-up.
Yeah, we're seeing that right now with a lot of these competitors, even with the amount of drivers on the racetrack, 23 in total. Right now, it's already amongst the first drivers on the racetrack as they run in terms of lineup. Taking a look at a couple of the other competitors, including the 180, trying to make some passes. How about some Briggs moves? Get around the orange and black machine that they're battling with. Going to open up a lot of those opportunities we were talking about earlier on for passes here today. So a lot of drivers getting some runoff, though. Going to pick up some sand in the middle sector. Everybody else resets and regroups.
And now's the point where it's going to get a little aggressive here and try and figure out what it takes to make the move, what it takes to make the passes. You definitely want to be careful when you dip those tires off into the dirt or into the grass, though, because that can come around on you pretty quick. That little break in traction on the outside tires, that can be pretty devastating. It always has been in my experience anyway. I don't know about you, Justin.
Absolutely. Cody Shaw, by the way, is that driver that we're seeing in the 180 machine that was a vice chairman in his first year racing in the Mika Club Briggs Cadet class last season. This season, he's been able to score some great success and be a part of some of the headlines in some of the battles across the region and the province. Checker flag waves in this group. So our next group just about ready to hit the racetrack again. Roy Chain stays top of the board. Robert Tranchi, Noah Anderson, Ilan Hazrati, followed by Asher Bravon in the top 5 here, Sheldon.
It's a pretty stacked top 5. It's going to be really interesting to see what these guys are capable of this afternoon as well. I mean, we're in for a treat, Justin, because these fields, they're just so deep and just so strong. There's going to be a lot of great racing here on Kart Chaser.
Looks like one of the flags may have gotten loose with some of the wind. The wind is popping up a little bit here for the Briggs Juniors coming up. They'll hold the flag down and tie it up as the field looks to rip its way onto the racetrack. Ethan Chain leads the way in the point standings with 1,038 points over the 966 points in a tie between Ethan Tires and Blake Frigeau. Then you have, we got
a cart around.
Oh, there's a bit of a stack up, a big stack up. 7, 8, 9 carts stopped on the racetrack. 202 amongst those still stopped as they try to regather. That's Adam Rebitz who's trying to get back going. A bit of calamity as cart workers get scrambling.
Everybody was real nice and careful with each other. That last session does not look to be the same case here for the Briggs Jr class.
Pure calamity striking for some of the drivers right there in the midst of some of the chaos. And a few drivers already saying, okay, I've got a problem. I'm going to have to come down pit road here with the hand signals. But this kind of showcases difficulty in the pack here for some of these drivers once we get to race conditions. How treacherous it could get here as we rumble along with the day. Fewer sins going on in the pack, but overall, lots of chances for overlap in the chicanes we've seen now in this group as they start to run 46-second lap times to start.
We've also seen a fair amount of bumpers being used here, too. One cart off the track, almost a slide coming out of the final corner.
Yeah, right now.
215 cart.
Doing, who is at the top of the board right now, looking to stay there. So your championship front runner still yet to gather up the points in the standings, though. Or should I say, the spots in said standings early on in this one. This is the interesting thing about practice sometimes is the momentum you can gain and the important things you learn in general for your respective setups for teams. Ethan Chan jumps to the top of the board. One driver spins. Some drivers having some big time troubles with the corners, trying to make sure they avoid the runoff.
There you go. I think you saw the 288 machine there signaling to the 244. to go by, so a little bit of a gentleman racing happening here. This has been the most chaotic session that we've covered so far here, Justin.
Yeah, especially with the stack up to start things off. Absolutely here.
What would your notebook be for this one, or would it be pretty close to what I've had the last two?
What would be my notebook? Well, slowly seeing opportunities that may open up for some of the passes, in particular in the middle sector. There's about one or two maybe drafting sections at best here, but it's all about how well you can handle the corners. And as well, based on what I've seen for some of these battles, like we just see with the 211 there getting hit, the ability to handle some of the checkups, like Nico Picciardo, who's having some issues with that. So at this point, a lot of these drivers having some big time swings when it comes to what they need to figure out to make passes, trying to pressurize mistakes here.
Yeah, this is what I'm hammering on again, just mistake free. You've got to be perfect. You got to be flawless. One mistake in a pack this big on that first lap especially, you can go from a hero to zero in absolutely just the blink of an eye. And getting back up there to the front, that looks like it's going to be definitely challenging, because we're seeing how difficult it is for these guys to really make big moves without messing themselves up. When you've got 20 other guys breathing down your neck, those opportunities dwindle pretty quick, because one small mistake can step you all the way to the back of the pack. And then just trying to work through the traffic on a track as narrow and as technical as this is definitely no small feat.
And these feats continue to be a challenge for these drivers to overcome here around the racetrack. Ethan Chen, Ethan Tires leading the way right now at the top of the session. 45.533 is your personal best. Adam Saldana wants those in the top four. Danya drops down to fourth. Dwayne jumping up to third in the session.
Ethan Tires is going to take over that top spot now with a 45.337 over Ethan Chan. It is a great day to be named Ethan, that is for sure, as they've both got the front two spots on lock for the time being over Stewine in third.
Keeping an eye on cameras, by the way, in some of these respective packs, how well and how bold they get here. Some of these drivers just willing to leapfrog their way onto the inside and the last minute, kind of how you have to approach things here, while the field has to make sure they know some of these passes come into play. Absolutely here. So much in terms of math. Marco Bazzano amongst those we're keeping an eye on the racetrack as we go here. Bazzano wants the drivers that have had some experiences with Canadian Karting Championships as well, including a 2025 Briggs Jr Canadian Vice Champion. So far, his session's been very quiet, though, in terms of running over 13. In fact, checker flag waving, cautions all over the racetrack indicate it's time for our next group to get ready to hit the racetrack. The Briggs Seniors. They are randomly selected by orbits for their respective running order. So they will have a random draw for their respective class. See how the classes get sorted here as we get underway for the Briggs Seniors, our biggest class and our premier final show for when we go racing in the nighttime tonight.
We got one kart backwards on the track there.
Able to get back going though, it looks like, so no major troubles. It's worth noting that for the Briggs Seniors and VLR Seniors in these races this weekend too here, Sheldon, it's $1,000 cash prize if you come away with the race win. So there is a lot at stake to close out the season, to be able to get some more cash prizes for your totals especially for the Briggs Seniors here this weekend.
Oh, with that much money on the line, that just means this is going to be a really cutthroat class. Nobody's going to want to give each other too much leeway, too much room. It's just all going to be about that money at the end of the day. As we unfortunately do have one cart that's not going to make it. And we got two carts off the track, three. Everybody gathers it up pretty quick. A little bit of contact, a little bit of curb hopping. And oh, another cart gets stuffed off there.
Yeah, some people trying to still sort themselves out of the heart of the field. This, mind you, 39 drivers deep. That's a lot of carts, to say the very least, that are going to have to work on this track. One driver off the racetrack still trying to figure out how to get their engine fired up. Absolute calamity here for a lot of these competitors to get sorted here. Right now, everyone's trying to figure out where they're going to get sorted. Right now, Logan is right now the leader in the point standings. Jaden Harry, followed by Logan Luder in the top three. More drivers off track, having to indicate they want to get off. For Logan, by the way, 1,168 points in the season. He's in a very comfortable spot to secure a championship. It's not one of the drivers believe in this group yet.
This looks like it's going to be another one of them chaotic splits, man.
And chaos reigns supreme sometimes, to say the very least. I think some of these races potentially are going to be wild later on this afternoon.
There's going to be a lot of big moments this evening. Because we're not cutting each other any breaks in practice. I can't even imagine when it comes down to, you know, when that pay window starts to open up those closing laps. Definitely one of those races where you want to keep your, leave your feelings in the garage. Because you could end up getting yourself in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah. Zoe Fintoff leading the way in the session over Elijah Josie. Michael and Alex Pellegrini wants the top four. They continue to sort themselves out on track. It's been an interesting day. It's a question of what will carry over throughout the afternoon. Remember, after this, these drivers go and qualifying for 7 minutes again for their respective sessions. For Lily, by the way, who's now fallen down to third behind Harry and Ing, is actually a photographer on the racing scene across the region. It's amongst the people who've gotten chances to do some photography for the Honda Indy in downtown Toronto over at the Exposition, essentially around where the Toronto FC Stadium is these days, for those who don't know. Of course, IndyCar now moving its race over to Markham for 2026. And did I mention also amongst the drivers that Abe was able to get a debut in the Radical Cup and a championship action as well. So was amongst the drivers that have also seen some experience with connections to the Canadian side recently. Those respective teams, if you follow social media side, was actually amongst the camera people for that Radical debut. On top of a karting experience, on top of also shooting pictures years ago with teams like the Whitby Wildcats. So a lot of experience there for the camera. And she's right now top of the board with the 44.953. With less than 30 seconds to go over Alex Pellegrini. Jacob Hill, now your points leader, top of the board. 3:16 to the top of the 44.7. A lot of swapping right now, and Logan, mind you, is a driver that also has gotten some test runs in sports cars, had also spent some time back in 2023 in the UK competing in Formula Ford's 1600 competition. As they reach the end of this part of the group, here this time, checker flag waves for Briggs Sr Group A.
I think this may very well end up being our most chaotic field this evening too, based on what we've just seen in practice.
It's going to be an interesting one with $1,000 on the line, absolutely here. All but 2 drivers believe set times in this session. Still having our group ready to fly as well though. As we get sorted out, it looks like we will be skipping that 2-group portion, by the way, if the totals are correct here. Coming up, qualifying, believe is going to be amongst those up next if they can get all the karts sorted out here. Your thoughts on the practice sessions here?
Well, most of what we've had this morning has been pretty streamlined and clean, but the last couple, you know, it seems like that intensity is starting to ramp up. But definitely excited to see what we have. I mean, we've got so many well-stacked fields here. It's going to be really exciting because that's a lot of karts, it's a lot of opportunity, that's a lot of opportunity to make mistakes and put yourself behind the 8 ball too. So it's going to be a lot to follow as we get into the closing stages of this day.
Kart's still getting sorted on the racetrack, and they are going to, it looks like, switch over to qualifying to give a quick correction to earlier on. Coming up here. So drivers are now onto the racetrack for our next part of the sessions. We'll see how things play out here coming up. So the drivers now hit the racetrack. 7 minutes, remember, on the track for each of these qualifying sessions. That, based on the time, is going to give you 4 laps to maybe do something here. Not too much time to be able to set your fastest time, but we've seen some of the drivers pick up 1.5, 2 seconds once the tires heat up here. Now seeing some of the times come on through as Briggs Masters are on the racetrack for their qualifying session. Watching out for here in Briggs Masters. Jason Rothman, top of the board, just shot up to that top group with a 46.4. Kevin May also flashing some early speed, just went up to the 45.9s. Kevin amongst the drivers that is a kart racer, but also is a mechanic based out of North Bay. Again, May amongst the drivers that has made some big commutes over time when it comes to his racing experience. Also, you have to keep in mind some of the drivers that have also picked up experience on the media side as well when it comes to Miata racing. That's also had a decent schedule build up across the province. A lot of people will travel far and wide here. The GTA attracts people from a couple hours away. For example, for reference, I'm based out of Windsor, Ontario. That's about 3.5, 4 hours for the racetrack. And it's fun to make that drive for these big events. People will travel for racing up to several hours just to get to, say, Delaware Speedway near London, Ontario, 2 hours each way. Did that drive myself as an announcer for several years. So people will travel far and wide to be able to race at the top level here and be able to perform in a race show. And right now, time's still populating. By the way, Sal did at the top of the board right now, 45.687. Only a couple minutes to work with on the clock. Michael Glaze has jumped to second, only a 10th back though in the order. Jason Rothman down to third. Salvequio has moved down to fourth. Kevin May is in the top 5. Keeping an eye on some of those drivers as they work through, such as Salvequio. Is gaining a lot of ground this lap, gaining some momentum, but is reaching traffic. That's going to cause some problems here at the moment. Traffic going to cause a major slope, Sheldon, for if you're on a push lap. Right now, out here for a lot of things, but will say for these competitors, it's the difficult part of getting enough clearance space to be able to work in a pocket to push away. This is the type of track, at least, that seems like it's not as easy as say you would see in a kit car or some of the air classes that will have those draft packs around this facility and just be able to stay in a rhythm and work in a pack and build the fastest laps that way. For a lot of these competitors, at least a couple kart lanes is to make sure you have enough space to work. Right now, these competitors still sorting themselves out on the board. Checker flag waves for the session. Driver that's been karting for a decade plus now. Sal Dida, top of the board, 455 with a 45.603. Michael Glaze with a 45.7. Dickerson with a 45.771. Jason Rothman, Salvequio, the top 5. Kevin May, David Miller, Greg Scottard, Ethan Yanko, Eli Yanko should say, down at 9th. Mike Husby will round up the top 10. Next pack onto the circuit, ready to put up some qualifying, is Mini Rok. Get your qualifying brought to you by Green Infrastructure Partners. Green Infrastructure Partners does plenty of projects across the region, building our future. That includes integrated infrastructure solutions, specialty infrastructure solutions, materials as well as doing construction projects for major works in Ontario and across the region in general, and construction materials. Some of the work they've done includes some highway rehabilitation lighting projects in London, some daily overpass work in Manitoba, widening Highway 401 between Windsor and London, the Rose City and the Ford City, as well as building some overpass works in London, as well as working on a BRT project for Aviva Next in Toronto, among some of the recent projects. Again, big supporters as one of Canada's largest and most diversified infrastructure companies.
See a little bit of an off track there for Asher Vaughn. Goes a little bit here to get qualifying underway. George Hogan be the first one across the line with a 44.873.
Some of the air times populating their way through. Thomas Dew getting some times populating to the top of the board, 40.38. Expect some of those times to already dip in the next couple laps or so.
Hey, these guys running about, what, 40-second laps?
42-second laps
42,
earlier
right.
this morning, yeah. So they will pick up an extra second here. Just how these tires work, mind you, for these Rok cards, the ROKs you could also say, but Rok is the way it's pronounced when talking with DJ Clark, who is one of the announcers for the series, the American side. They all use the Vega, either the Vega Blue when it comes to VLR with Mini Rok or VLR Jr, or they use the Vega X Cup Ontario top, on T-top specifically for the seniors and master for the senior side of things. So the Vega Blue takes a little bit of time, as you would normally expect, to work its way in for that rubber, but also those tire pressures. Liam Francisco now 1 and 2, 43.6. 1-1 for Jaden. Liam with a 43.694. See if there's any changes this time through, as they are already seen Liam put up a slower time by 3/10 and getting past the rounds here. Done with Asher Pavon. Pavon now set free.
Francesco setting down some pretty good lap times here. Both of them. Both Jaden as well as Liam. Jaden top of the board right now with a 43.811. And even a 10th back is going to be Liam. Thomas Dew trying to pick up some time here too to pull up the board, sitting third right now in the 150 cart.
Yeah, right now, you have to keep an eye on if Asher Pavon's able to find a little bit of speed along with his respective pack still on screen. He's already built up a couple kart lengths to his competitors. Last time through was 3/10 off the personal best when it came to what he's done so far. That personal best, half a second off of the whole time. 44.1 for Pavon, 43.6 remember Jaden Francisco.
Well, this has been a pretty uncharacteristic start to things here for Asher Pavon. You know, so used to seeing him come out there, set a blistering time, and just dominate. And a lot of the tracks and a lot of the races that he runs, a little bit behind it this weekend.
Yeah, not in the ballpark you would expect, especially since the pole sitter time has gone to a 43.5 for Jaden Francisco here. As Liam around nearby his respective pack here too, keep in mind. So he's going to have to push hard here. Only has less than a minute to go or so in the session. Clock already past the 5-minute mark. Asher Pavon does jump up to 5th past Burpit. Christian Demian Adidas now jumping up to 2nd. Aiden Kishan up to 3rd. Liam Francisco get shuffled down the order, down a little bit as a result of the squabbling. So the Franciscos get split up. So we'll see where things really shape up as they come around this time. It's going to be close on timing. Asher Bravon down to 8th in the order. No change this time through, even though a personal best was set in the 43.8, but he's out of time. Checker flag in the session. 43.2, Jaden Francisco. Thomas Dew responds by jumping up to a session high second for him. Christian Demian Didis jumping to 3rd. Remember, on the 7th time around at Eden Kishan, Liam Francisco in the top 5. That's how they close up for that respective session for the Mini Rock. VLR Jr is next in the order. Right now, VLR Jr is now on the circuit for their respective session once again. Roy Chain leads the way in this group with a 40.6. Robert Tranchi and Ethan Tyers, followed by Quinn Tyers, were amongst the top 3-4 spots just a moment ago, but James Tupford has jumped up to the 4th position. So far, so good when it comes to how quickly things have gone. But so far, Roy Chain looking very quick here over the tires. Right now, still keeping an eye on some of the other drivers as they work on their own here around the racetrack. Right now, looking at screen, Marco Fazzari. He'll be driving in the white cart with the red in the blue, it appears here today. Right now, 41.3s for Marco. And he was amongst the drivers that were crowned Rok Canadian champions previously in 2024. Lots of experience there, of course, for Marco, who had some leads as well in the Ontario Interclub Challenge. Checker flag waves. Roy Chang up front. Again, for those watching on and listening on to the PA side of things here today, we apologize for technical difficulties there previously. Should be worked through those issues now as things look a lot smoother from the video feed, hearing from some of those watching along. We hope you're enjoying the action. We hope the fans are enjoying racing to a better future here today and enjoying the karting action. The grandstands have a lot of people hanging out in the sunshine. So we're qualifying. Yeah.
It looks like Roy Chang trying to keep the dominance, though, coming across the stripe with a 10th up or 2/10 up on the field to bring home the pole. As we watch VLR Master, we got one kart off the track already. Oh, make that two. Self-spin there.
Was there a banana peel on the racetrack or something? Like, that looked a little bit ironic there.
I'll give the excuse of cold tires. I'll give it this once. We got another kart off the track here in one of the access roads.
Pure chaos to start things off a little bit right on the access road. There is a bit of a hill transition there at that part of the circuit, so you can understand a little bit why that would be the case. Absolutely, maybe. But we'll see how things shape up as these drivers get themselves to the scoring loops, put themselves up on the timing beacon.
I will say there's plenty of room for mistakes when you're trying to beat everybody else to the loud pedal. It's pretty hairy sometimes, especially, these guys just now coming off pit road too. There could be some credence to the whole cold tire philosophy. We've seen how bad that is in every other form of motorsport. I imagine, cold tires on a go-kart probably a little subpar as well.
Yeah. So far, the sun's been beating down the racetrack. I will say, in most parts of Ontario, I've heard some described in some areas as high as 10 degrees hotter than normal when it comes to the weather conditions here. So the track temperatures, in theory, are going to be a little bit hotter compared to if we were to run this race last year here showing it.
I remember covering here last year, same time of the season, and it definitely wasn't hot. It was definitely a little damp, though, because it was raining cats and dogs. Last time I got to cover here from Goodwood.
Yeah, it's 61 degrees today, funnily enough, in Uxbridge.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool start.
It's supposed to get as high as 64 by the middle of the day. Hey, it's better than down more so around the parts I'm from, where it can be up to 10 degrees hotter. For those keeping track of Celsius, because this is Ontario, it's 16 right now.
Well, it's better than Taylor Burris's part of the country, where it's about 110 every time they try to do anything down there in Texas.
Mark Pavon right now setting the heat, though, in this session. A 42-1 to start off. John Karate in second. Pardon me, that is now Andre Blenko, who's jumped up with a 42-2.
Blenko putting in some pretty good times. Here comes Ivan Hiku now. They're going to take up the second spot with a 42-238. There's a couple hundreds separating him from Falenko. And Gariotti not too far back. But right now, Pavon setting the pace over just about 0.3 of a second faster than second place Ivan Hiku.
Mark Pavon, amongst the drivers that, of course, is the father with Asher Pavon, who celebrates a lot of his success when it comes to social media side of things. When it comes to Asher, things have been skyrocketing as of late. When you look at the social media in general, just about every post is about Asher, just with his speed. And it should be a surprise to see Mark as well be very fast here today. He's reaching a lot of traffic, though. This isn't going to be a faster next time out for him as he tries to cycle his way through traffic.
I will say everything that Mark has done with Asher's driving career has been incredible. Asher's been so lights out quick all year long. You know, a little bit of an uncharacteristic start for things here today, but you know, I can only imagine that it's going to get better for Asher before the evening comes to a close. But Mark setting up blistering laps, but Andre Felinko says, no, it's my turn to take the top spot as he sets down a 41.763, setting him just 0.2 of a second faster than Mark Pavon in second.
Felinko still holds on to the top, yes. But for how long, with right now these drivers turning up to 7 laps? Based on the timing of these qualifying sessions, these races are going to be extremely quick, by the way. Because for a majority of the classes, they're 8 laps for the heat races, plus the pre-finals, which go up to 10 laps for most classes. Then it goes to 12 for some of the classes, but not all of the classes for the finals, but also with an LCQ for the Briggs Sr as well. What I'm saying is, these races can go by in 8 to 10 minutes here today if they work like clockwork, like the qualifying session.
Well, I can't see much reason why they wouldn't, though. This track has done an incredible job getting everybody loaded up on the track surface quick, and yeah, most of these drivers have done a great job just being patient, not causing any big dicey moments.
Absolutely is the major thing right now. So we'll see where things go with the timing beacon coming up towards the end here. Just about 15 seconds out. And Andre Felinko continues to go faster and faster. It's Kart 483 for those watching along at the facility. The time difference is getting shaved down. Yes, you're reading that right. It's going down to about under a 10th. In fact, on the distance, checker flag waves in the session. It's under 1,000. In terms of some of the times here, it is getting razor thin margins, but Felinko finishes up his run. He just passed by the time beat, and Mark Pavon runs in second. Then it's Cariati in third. Then it's Valenzano, who is in fourth. Andrew specifically. Ivan Hinchuk finishes off in the 5th position with Von Bowden, Paul Rhodes, Stephen Hanna, who is a top runner in the practice section, 8th, Jason Tomlinson and Jesse Garant, your top 10. Two classes down make that already 4. There's a track of math there, but math will be important to calculate on how these drivers get the top times in VLR Master, or rather in Senior. The seniors now heading to the racetrack, Sheldon.
This is where we started to see a little bit of chaos start to kick in too earlier this morning, wasn't it? Here with the seniors?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen earlier a bit of some chaos with drivers early on. A couple of them having to get pushbacks out of the grass. Broberg, I'm curious if they've fixed Loberg's machine in 300 here for this qualifying session. Of course, they were one of the drivers that had to go on the pickup.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of pace he's able to set here, because he didn't really get a chance to set any laps earlier in practice. So basically, first chance getting to the track here. Well, now we're starting to reach into afternoon.
Yep, keeping an eye on these drivers and Pollock. Once the only drivers to put up a time so far on the timing pile on. Still keeping an eye on some of these carts as they roll and how they get sorted. So, as we go on the track, you're going to have to keep an eye on Jordan DeLeo. So, of course, the family involved here with Goodwood when it comes to the management side of things. They are known as the famous Racing DeLeos, after all, with siblings Daniel, Marco, and Stephanie that were all part of Markham. Daniel was a karting superstar, but also was a multi-time national champion. Also picked up a KA championship at one point. Got some Formula karting experience in terms of the father. And is one of the many driver family members who organizes the track. Marco, also a Canadian star in his respective manner, that also went in 6 triple finals in his career. Also went to Skip Barber and Star Mazda competition before he became a manager of the Goodwood Kartways national team. For Stephanie, on the business side, has also had some visits trackside, multiple different races. Jordan, in other words, I'm saying, has a big lineage when it comes to racing here. He's top of the board, 40.2.
Looks like Wilberg's starting to find some pace in that 300 cart, sitting 6th on the board right now. Second back from race leaders, but, or sorry, the top of the board, but not too bad for the first couple laps here on the circuit.
Yes, indeed. By the way, for those watching along on the YouTube side of things, be sure to show your support of the broadcast coverage and be able to share your questions or storylines using the chat functionality. Once again, use the chat functionality to be able to communicate through towards our direction if you want to be able to bring something to our attention here today. I'll be keeping an eye on that at least today. I know for some of the series that's very active in terms of building an interaction with the fan base and hearing what people think from the infield. But drivers trying to think, what can they do to at least get the outside front row? 2/10 the difference just about, Sheldon. DeLeo is just flying out there, and it's been hard to match the pace of the 319.
It's been difficult, but Roman Doria has been swapping competitive laps with DeLeo the past handful of rotations around the circuit. Doria had the pole there for a little bit. DeLeo takes it back over. Here's questions. That 218 machine going to fire back with something quick here in the closing segments of qualifying.
Yeah, running out of time in the session. Some of the drivers grouped together right now. It's going to cause some slow-ups for them right now. In fact, we might have already passed some of the peak for some of the drivers per se in terms of lap times. A few of the drivers have started to slow down. In fact, most drivers have now veered away from their personal bests here. Where's your preference on the lap times? We know these drivers are getting about 7 laps now with how quick the laps are going. Where would you be aiming up your lap time for? Like some drivers, would you come in early? Or do you try and set the time early? Do you try and set the time late? Where would you try and set that fast lap?
Honestly, for me, but you know, this is from my experience with tires, I try to set it when them tires are nice and hot. I try to set it a little bit later on in the run. There's always something about just pulling that fast lap out at the last possible second and nobody really having the ability to scramble against it.
Yeah, there's so much when it comes to timing up the window. I think for most of the drivers, we've passed that peak window, it seems, based on what we're seeing. 3 drivers set personal best last time by Ethan Pollock, along with Giannis Marikakis. Also, Lilleberg also did the same thing. But this time around with the checker flag, no major shakeups on the board. It's going to be Jordan DeLeo on the pole, setting a 40.096. Roman Doria in second, Ethan Pollock in third. Then it's through 25, Giannis Marikakis in the 4th spot, and then Shimbasi in the top 5, Aiden in that spot. Brenner Loberg in 6th. Then Franco Karate in 7th. Connor Rhodes in 8th. Nicholas Capolongo in the 9th position. And Massimo Perlaioli, he will start in the 10th position. So our next group is on the racetrack. It's the Briggs Cadets. We move over to the 206 engine. And these drivers definitely will need the laps to be able to build themselves up. These are your youngsters, the 7 to 11-year-olds here, Sheldon.
And what a massive field of drivers we have here, too. Sitting here looking, I think it was sitting at 28 carts on track here for the Briggs Cadets.
Yes, I will say this, though. A lot of young drivers have made their way out here today, because one of the things we haven't touched upon too much yet is we're also going to be doing kid karts here for these events, which we usually don't see as much kid kart coverage when it comes to Kart Chaser sometimes. There's 40 to 60 kid karts on the property today. That's a lot of youngsters that are like 4, 5, 6-ish years old looking to race here today. And they've got a busy slate of schedules in between all these other sessions here today.
That's a lot of carts, man. That's it's more than a standard cup field. I'm wondering right now, though, with Briggs Cadets on track, I'm wondering if Ricky Ramden's going to be able to keep at the pace we saw earlier in practice. Because he looked like he had this thing more or less on lock.
Yeah. Is it... Can you really lock up a practice session and carry that to a race? Though that's the thing.
Well, I've seen it. I've seen it a couple times. But I've seen the opposite, too. I've seen somebody, you know, look incredibly quick in practice, incredibly quick in qualifying. They go out there, the first turn, blow it, and spend the rest of the race just trying to crawl through track position and not able to get it. You know, it's never over until it's over. But sometimes you do have that, those off occasions where, you know, somebody's just dominant and they remain that way all day long.
Tara Romeo at the top of the board right now. They're right now one of the first drivers of the racetrack for Aiden Kishon on circuit. The 93 over the 80 is the separation by 3/10. Only a couple laps in out of the potential 7. Luke Burpett in third. Luca Rodriguez, Yusuf Adi in the top 5 at the moment. Some of these drivers staying packed up together, trying to quickly sort things out before things get uber chaotic here once again. That's some of the critical things. Jacob Rowlands, we've seen, has been amongst the drivers very active here today in regards to his respective packs. Right now, some of the drivers just trying to find a way to zip on by, like right there down the front. That 18 machine, for reference sake, is right now 17. And that's the thing about picking up where you choose where you are in line, Sheldon. You cannot afford to get held up. Sometimes you just have to take the risk and go.
Oh, you absolutely just got to send it and try and get the best out of it that you possibly can right now. Romeo setting down really good laps in that 93 cart. Bulpit moving up second place, though. 43 for the 87 machine. Ada Kishin holding on to third with a 46.397 over Yusuf Adi. Oh no, Luca Rodriguez sliding up into fourth position with a 46.399. And Yusuf sitting there with a 46.5. Just hold on to the top 5 right now. And oh, huge stack up. We got a cart on top of another cart here.
Oh, that's 3-4 drivers all stopped, and this may cause some absolute tension here. Might see a red here. Gonna have to keep it on. It's still no sign of it yet. So that's a lot of carts that were all stacked up on top of each other there, Sheldon.
Yeah, it's a huge wreck. You see, they've gotten the carts.
They're
still stuck here, yeah.
This is still a traffic jam. Everybody gonna lose time here. Crew members still picking up carts, still trying to turn them around. And we did not go red in that situation. We stay yellow at most.
So that was kind of a sketchy call to just keep it with the yellows flying, but I like it. We got a couple more carts getting tangled up here.
Someone tried to turn around. That was the 80, believe, coming across the racetrack. That was Aiden Kishin. That's one of your top drivers in the session. Second on the board who got turned around. Still trying to clean things up.
Oh, and also we've only got 15 seconds before they wave that checkered flag.
Well, that's an exciting qualifying session. Not if you're one of the people involved in the incident, of course. But that's going to shake up some of the drivers and some of the personal bests. Not going to be able to be set there. The drivers losing at least 2 laps, you'd have to think, in terms of good opportunities there.
Mm-hmm. But how about the courage of the track workers there? Been so easy to throw a red flag there and, hold off on this qualifying for a couple minutes to get everything straight and, going out there and risking their ankles to make sure that everybody's pulled off each other and not impede on the finish of qualifying here.
So we'll see what happens here for these drivers during the races. But Mateo Romeo at the top of the board. Aiden Kishon in second. Thomas Dew, Luke Burpitt, Luca Rodriguez, your top 5. Ricky Ramden, who led practice, down in 6th, in fact, just set his personal best to end. Yusuf Adi down in 7th. Tristan Francisco 8th in the session.
Yeah, just expecting a little bit more out of Ricky Ramden, but still plenty of time left. Still got the race to go, the heats. A lot of day left, but Romeo with an incredible time to finish us off. 2.5 tenths over second place Aiden Kishin as we get ready for our next division to take to the track.
Once again, it'll be Briggs Jr Lite, followed by Briggs Jr and Juniors and Briggs Sr in our packs. Just trying to get all the carts sorted out here as crew members are sent scrambling down up pit road. I believe they're just still sorting things out. Now they are done sorting. Drivers are on the track, and fans are now sent sprinting along to be able to follow on their favorite drivers here. And they get themselves qualified out here. Some of the drivers do not want to lead pretty clearly. What's your preference usually? Leader or follower in a qualifying and group sessions?
I want to be in the lead. I want to have clean track in front of me. I don't have to worry about anybody else's mistakes holding me back. But, depending on what the draft is, you said there might be a little bit at the end of the straightaway. Might be a good call to stay tucked in behind somebody. But at a track as technical as this, man, I like to have nothing but clarity in front of me.
Yeah, I'm one of those drivers where sometimes it's like that, where you want clean space just to be able to focus. But some of the tracks, it might be where I'm good with a follower to be able to get a read on the marks, but also get some draft pull to be able to gain some momentum for your respective kart. It just really depends. Just really depends on the situation. As these drivers now get ready to score their first laps up on the board. Had almost 2 hours of track activity so far here this afternoon. We've been flying through the card here so far in what's been a busy time for Kart Stars Canada. Robert Tronchi starting up at the top of the board. You also have Lucas Ferrente. You also have Asher Bavon and Roy Chang amongst the top four early on here for the junior lights.
Noah Anderson up at the top of the board right now with a 46 flat over a 46.6 from Robert Tronchi. Milan Hazardi going to take over second place, though, with a 46.479. And Marco Fazzari going to hold on to third with a 46.4. And there's the Asher Pavon we all know and expect. Up to the top of the board now with a 45.775. Things look a little bit better for him in the Briggs Jr Lite.
Yeah, this is his class where he's been able to dominate in the point standings, per se. Build that points tally over 1,000 points on the season. So there is a good chance for Bravon to be able to roll here in this class. There's a look at Asher Bravon right now. He works behind one of the Burrell arts. And that Burrell art looking to paint the lines and try and put together a masterpiece. At least feed Pavon some draft to be able to borrow some paint from. Robert Tronchi takes the top of the board. 136 to the top of the pylon with a 45.531.
Really good lap there for Tronchi. Bavon holding on to second, but here comes Noah Anderson fighting back with a 45.6 to take over the spot from Azure Bavon. Just 1/100th of a second separating those two from each other.
Yeah, so far some close separations between some of these drivers. Seen right now, everyone close up the Tronchi's rear end this time. This time through, Roy Chain jumps up to second in the 163. Some passing now, as it looks like a little bit of swap games now being played. A lot of these drivers now trying to test out if they can get the clean air to work. Looks like right now Asher Bavon losing a lot of ground, getting held up a decent bit here. Still have about a minute and 20 seconds, give or take. Minute and 20.
And out of nowhere, the 161 machine of Cameron Conrath going to take the top spot with a 45.3. I don't think we've mentioned Conrath at any point, have we?
Not at all. One of the drivers that's had experience running in a Kubica kart. Jumping to the top of the board. Been in this championship a couple times over, or in some Kart Stars 23 for some of his championships, for example. Once 18th place in his respective classes back at the time. Now, today, looking to see if he can control the front. Tronchi takes the top of the board. Conrad falls down to third. Make that second because Roy Chain now does jump to first with a 45.1. Only driver to the 45.1s here as they'll come up to the checker flag. Can they get a good push lap to end?
And it is the thinnest of margins separating your top four karts, all of which under 2/10 from each other.
Coming up to checker flag this time through. Checker flag now waves up at the flag stand. White Chain's time stays. Tranchi stays. Kart in third. As Roddy jumps to fourth. Frente jumps down to fifth position by Alessandro Cadimi. In the sixth position, Asher Brevard on both sessions, Evan Sheldon.
I will say that for Asher being seventh in this session, probably feels a little bit better than being seventh earlier, because this is a huge field of karts we have here for the junior lights.
Speaking of juniors, though, it's time for more juniors to hit the racetrack. Juniors now hit the circuit. As we get ready to see where things stack up for them. Remember, junior point standings this season have been led by Ethan Chan for Go. Up in second, Ethan Tires in third position in point standings, to remind you, on the running or amongst the top three, amongst the drivers that have looked consistent in this championship. So we'll see where things stack up here as the field gets itself quickly sorted. And let me ask you this here in the terms of what we expect here, Sheldon. In terms of this class, where do you see things stacking up? Who do you see taking potentially the pole time? I'll put you on the spot here.
Might take a quick look through here. It's not as cut and dry as I was expecting it to be today, because we've seen a lot of variance in times. I mean, Tires, incredible. Ethan Chan, incredible. But you've also, you've got, like, this is a good situation, too, for, like, a Jamie Stewine to just come up out of nowhere, because we've seen Jamie Stewine do that before. Oscar Swiderski, also incredibly fast. I mean, it's a hard one to pick, but I do have to say what we saw in practice. I could go with either one of the Ethans. It could be either Chan or Tires walking away with the pole here this afternoon.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there is something to mention when it comes to some of the various different opportunities here this weekend. We mentioned the Uxbridge Hospital Foundation. They're having a charity fundraiser, a part of this event. You're with the night race competition. We're all the Cadet, Mini, and all junior class drivers were invited to be a part of a pledge-based fundraiser where they want every junior driver to get involved. Where essentially, they were all given a flyer, a pledge tracker sheet, and a campaign pledge confirmation form. You're recommended to reach out to family members, friends, neighbors, local businesses, anything that can, to be able to go out and raise money for the Uxbridge Hospital Foundation. What's in it for them? There were $5,000 in award enhancements for the top 5 fundraisers. $1,000 going to the top 5 fundraisers for charity here, Sheldon.
This means there's a lot on the line here for these guys. Who do you have? Who's your pick?
You're asking me my pick for the pole?
Yeah, who's your pick for the pole?
Easier said than done, but
yeah.
Ethan Chan.
Certainly. Blake Fergu, though, going to take over that top spot right now with a 45.4 to throw us an extra curveball, 8/1000ths of a second, separating first from second. It's not even a... What is that, about the distance between the front bumper to the door on these karts?
Give or take. Blake Frigo, should say, up to top of the board. Ethan Tires in second. Jamie Stewine should say, in third spot. Ethan Chan in fourth. Marco Bazan in the top 5 as we go on the racetrack. Still halfway through the session, less remaining.
And it's still not over, because 8/1000ths of a second, I mean, that's something that Tires can take. That's also something Ethan Chan or Stewine can take, because look at how close these top 4 are from each other. We're not even a tenth of a second separated between fourth place and first. That is crazy competitive.
Right now, in particular, front runners getting really separated out on the racetrack. We go. Again, the trend has been, don't get too close to a pack. You'll get checked up, lose your opportunities. Ethan Tires uses his tires to go to the top of the board.
But there's Ethan Chan firing back quick with a slightly faster lap, 6/1000ths of a second now between first and second. And Jamie Stewine going to move up into second place as well. So much changing here in the closing sections, or the closing laps of qualifying. Don't count out the 2.8 machine of Blake Forgo either, because sitting there for just a tenth, over a tenth and a half behind. We've seen him move to that top of the board earlier here. It's still possible.
Yeah, still chances for swap arounds, but Ethan Chen right now up by 6/1000ths of a second on the pylon. Will that hold? He's one of the drivers first in the running order at the moment in terms of laps being turned. Take a look at towards his direction here, believe. Right now, the overlap areas still seeing plenty pop up around this racetrack. Last time through, not too many people upgraded their lap times, so we are reaching basically the peak right here, coming up towards the checker flag this time by. So, checker flag waves. Ethan Tired, Master 45032. Will Ethan Chen be able to respond? The answer is no. His time ends up being a 45.128 in the end. Stewine finishes in third. Forgo in the fourth position. Sean Evans. Haven't seen much of him here today. So far, holding on to fifth over Adam Sodanha. Nico Pizerno will be in seventh. Marco Bazan in eighth. And looks like our last grouping is ready to sort themselves onto the racetrack here. The Briggs Seniors, remember, they were originally in the schedule supposed to be split up, but all of them did go out together, Sheldon. There were 39 drivers on that entry list.
It's going to get wild. What an incredibly close pack of karts we had, though, for Briggs Jr. That's going to be an exciting race.
Are you feeling excited? Raise your hand if you are, if you're at the facility. Why? Because why not? Seriously though, drivers are on the racetrack as that joke lands flatter than a pancake. Oh wow. Let's see who's going to be able to streak to the top of the board. All get sorted out here in this session. What's kind of the expectations you have here for this class in terms of what type of race we get?
Well, we're starting to get to that point of the day, though. You know, with these classes where we've ended up with a little more chaotic than normal in practice. Qualifying, everything going to probably be a little more cut and dry. As far as a hands-on favorite here, I can't really tell you that I have one right now.
Yeah, it could be a little bit up in the air with how many karts there are here, we'll say. But Logan Paxa should be one of the drivers to keep an eye on. taking a few laps to get to their optimal window. 3 and 4 laps in has been the optimal window for most, but we've seen some stretch to lap 7 on the push lap.
And Pellegrini going to take the top spot here, the 45.011, but Jacob Hill going to come back quicker with a 44.970 through the 357 cart to the top of the board here with the first sub 45-second lap of the session.
Yeah, Logan Paxa jumps to the top of the board, though. The 316 to the top of the board.
Mitch Amaro going to slide into second. Eric Moore in third. All of which running 44.8s, really close, 500ths of a second separating your top three, and it gets even closer here because now it's 500ths of a second separating your top 5 from each other. As Jacob Hill and Logan Paxa go to battle with who has the best lap. Jacob Hill going to take it though by 0.2 of a second over Paxa.
Yeah, can't count out Mitchell Morrow, by the way, because he is the 2024 Briggs Sr Canadian karting champion.
Speak of the devil.
Yeah, he is going to be one of the drivers to watch for, top of the board with a 44.5. That's about a half a tenth quicker than Jacob Hill. Half a session to work with as things continue to change here. Lots of back and forth.
Top 5 separated by 0.2 of a second. Oh, that goes all the way through to just about 7th place. And up to the top again, Mitchell Morrow. Another fast lap out of him, purple.
Lots of time change right now. Right now we are under 2 minutes to go in the session. Under 2 minutes to work with. While Ryan Hodgson yet to set any times in the session. We have 38 on track. A lot of battling for some of these drivers. That's going to hold them up here. 321 trying to make some moves, trying to make some inroads. That's Logan Ploder. Ploder right now really needs to pick up spots right now. That machine in 10th position. That is almost no man's land for the heat races if you can't get yourself in a good rhythm.
You know, you don't want to end up that far back in the pack here today, especially with how chaotic we've seen this field is or can be. You know, you've got yourself, you start in 10th, you're right in that turn 1 calamity range, and you just don't want to be there. Jacob Hill still at the top of the board, though, with a 44.
Yes, indeed. Lots of swapping back and forth we go. Right now, still seeing where some of these drivers finish up on their times next time by. Morrow this time didn't upgrade. Nobody's upgraded in the past time by. I think we've crossed that window. Nobody has been able to improve on their times. We might have reached the cliffing point on the tires here for the hot lap. Here we go, checker flag now on the session. And Jacob Hill. Looks like he'll start at the top of the board for the races today. We get going. Mitchell Morrow, Logan Paxa, then Eric Moore, David Barnes, Ben Lawrence, Declan Black, Alex Peregrini, Elijah Josie, Logan Ploder are the drivers. Again, for those watching along, we're going to reset once again. Small break getting sorted into our coverage, but we are going to switch over to premium coverage. Be sure to sign up for $9.99 a month to be able to sign up and see all the action from across North America for the karting scene. We'll be back in less than 15 minutes time. Let's go behind the paywall.
This broadcast is the sole property of Kart Chaser Group, LLC. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of the images, audio, or accounts of this event, in whole or in part, without the expressed written consent of Kart Chaser Group, LLC is strictly prohibited. Thanks for watching.